Welcome. This is my live stream that I'm having today at 1 p.m., which is starting to become my typical time for chats. Going to be continuing my particular topic that I have been doing for the past, month, almost a month and a half, I guess now, which is Donald Trump. Before I start, I do like to ask for people to come join my channel. I'm trying to build up my channel on YouTube, trying to achieve the requirements from YouTube, which is 1,000 subscribers. And what I originally thought was 30, 40 hours of watch time, and going back to seeing the requirements is, oh my God, it's like 3,000 hours of watch time. So if you could join my channel, that would be fantastic. If you could start watching my YouTube videos, that would be great too, as it obviously is going to be a aspect of helping me achieve those specific requirements. So to continue my conversation about the topic that I am discussing nowadays, which is Donald Trump, and to understand where he came from, how he got to where he got, why is he still where he's at, why is he being accepted. Those are interesting questions for me. As I've mentioned before, my channel is not a debating channel. I do want people to actually join my channel. I do want people to actually, come on and talk with me. And the conversation is just going to be about opinion, about why things are happening the way they happen from your perspective, why you may follow something that I may not, particularly agree with in general, or find question marks about why you actually follow them. I'd like to ask questions related to that. I'm really hoping that I can sooner or later get people to start joining my channel and talking about the things that I want to talk about. And to continue my current topic, because I see nobody's joined yet, about Donald Trump. And I was just going over, because I've been going over the last few weeks about things that were points that I wanted to go over, and I've been going over about history and that, and reasons and that, and things along the lines of description of why Donald Trump is Donald Trump. I did ask a couple of questions on ChatGPT, just because that's the place I've been asking questions, and I did ask a couple of questions, and I did ask a question above this, which pretty much reiterated what things I did before, and it asked me if I want to present a timeline. And I said, yes, let's do that, because I just actually want to go over, history-wise with respect to how things evolved with respect to Donald Trump. And so we can start here just following the point form timeline that ChatGPT came up with, which is 1946. He was born. Grew up in a wealthy, disciplined household. Exposure to wealth, had a high expectations, early modeling of dominance and ambition. And that comes from his father. I talked about that in previous comments or conversations, that his father appears to be a big influence, even though I did state that there appeared to be maybe other influences on Donald Trump when he was younger. Specifically, his personal lawyer, when he was younger, I think he got that aspect of never accepting failure a lot from that particular person, and I apologize, I forget his name. And his father was very dominant. I think he gets that aspect of being very overly aggressive. I think he gets that from his father, but that aspect of not presenting himself in a way that demonstrates or presents any kind of failure. Like I said, he learned that from other people, I believe. Childhood, teens, parents, Fred and Mary Ann Trump, yes. Fred taught strength equals approval. Somewhat, yes. Vulnerability equals danger, yes. Mary Ann reinforced admiration and prestige. Okay. Early lessons in performance-based self-esteem, desire for recognition becomes core motivations. I think it's a big thing with Donald Trump. He seems like he needs to have an aspect of acknowledgement for whatever it is he is doing. It seems he needs to get some sort of response to that. Age 13. Oh, that's very out to the point. Age 13, boy, that's kind of like, very, very explicit. Oh, that New York Military Academy. I wonder if they're going to talk about it here. Discipline, hierarchy, aggression, reward, dominance. I think that's normal for basically a military-like academy. Internalized belief, strong leaders survive and thrive. Stress equals test of power. Not sure about that per se, but they didn't talk about it here. But apparently Donald Trump was a little bit, rambunctious, I guess, if you want to give some sort of, explanation or phrase, term to use with respect to how he was when he was younger, and his father, probably more than his mother, wanted to get some sort of enforced stability into his character. And they felt that him being put into a military academy would help them. Then again, I heard some stuff that he did at that military academy that sounds like the aspect of his rambunctiousness still was there, even though he was at this military academy. 1964 to 1968, college, Fordham and Wharton. Economics degree, connections, business knowledge, foundation for credibility in business and public messaging. That's interesting because some people sit there say there's aspects of question marks about his ability to actually understand those concepts of what she actually was educated in. Like I said, it says economics degree. I don't remember if it was actually an economics degree that he got, but to be honest, from my perspective, I get the impression his ability to understand economics is very questionable. Does not seem to be complete. Makes me wonder actually how he actually interprets economic concepts. Late 1960s to the 1970s, joins father's company, manages middle-income housing, learns real estate financing, politics, construction. Okay. Early business competence, foundation for independence and ambition. Okie dokie. 1970s to the 80s, moves into Manhattan, Grand Hyatt, Trump Tower, casinos. And I said before, I didn't realize he actually built the Trump Tower in the 80s. I thought it was in the 90s, but I think I did remember reading in my previous reviews that he actually built that tower in the 1980s. Risk-taking, high-profile deals, media exposure, brand building, okay. Public visibility, perception of success, begins cultivating celebrity persona. That, I think, is actually true. Well, not true. It says it. It actually is true. That's when his exposure publicly became more prominent, was in the 80s. Because I can remember in the 80s he was something there. Didn't follow him that much in the 80s, but I do remember that he was somebody that every once in a while came up in the news articles or programs on that actually focused on celebrity kind of arenas. He did show in those particular places. 1987, published The Art of the Deal. That's a big question mark there. Projecting success and dominance, narrative control. Followers begin to see Trump as confident deal maker, brand grows nationality. And again, that's into that aspect of selling his brand as it was described there. Basically, that's where he branded himself, started in that period of time. 1980s and 1990s, media appearances and scandal coverage, practices self-promotion, manipulates attention, survives failures. Followers learn resilience and toughness are core traits, creates fighter image. I think that's actually true. 2004 to 2015, reality TV, The Apprentice. I do remember that came up, and I did watch a little bit, and I didn't see anything there that was outstanding with respect to who he was and how he did things. It seemed like it was almost a scripted kind of activity. Reinforces decisive, dominant persona, builds mass visibility, yes. Millions see him as competent, strong, unyielding. Loyalty grows from admiration, probably. 2015, announces presidential campaign. Populist messaging, anti-establishment rhetoric, identity alignment with supporters. Followers connect emotionally, see him as a protector and voice of their frustration, which I think comes in the aspect of people don't really like politicians in general. And he started up saying, "Goes, I'm not a politician. I'm everyday. I'm you, you know, and I want to fix things." And I think that really caught him the first time he went for that. Again, he was elected 45th president. Much going into that, we know what he did there. 2002, the presidency, we know what he did there. 2021, the president, post-presidency, and new presidency, which doesn't get into here, which is kind of interesting. Key takeaways: foundations, early life, Fred Trump, military school, taught dominance, competition, fear of weakness, yes. Business and media, Manhattan projects plus media exposure, creative celebrity, amplified ego, yes. Political follower acquisition, emotional, identity-driven messaging drew supporters who felt represented, protected, and understood. Loyalty maintenance, scandals rarely break loyalty because supporters see him as strong, authentic, and fighting on their behalf. Psychological alignments. Trump's personality fulfills emotional identity needs of followers, not just political goals. And I think this comes up in the same lines of what I talked about before and the aspects of the points that I brought up. And this is kind of like just a clarification to some extent, or just a point of how he got to where he got and why he is still there. And it got in the aspect as he was able to present himself in a way that was or gathered accolade, I guess. He also gained reputation for being a strong person, which again comes from his history, from his upbringing in that, and how he became who he became. And how he was able to get people to get on his side and accept him in general. I was going to say accept him for who he is, but I don't want to say that, but accept him. Just accept him. I just want to say again, ChatGPT always says, "Do you want me to do something more?" And I didn't really want to do what it said, so I asked another question, which is, I want to have an explanation of how controversies that he has been involved in does not affect him, which is something that I see quite a bit. Like his statements of viewing young women in their dressing rooms and sexual abuse allegations and confirmed sexual abuses. And I said, absolutely, because that's what, ChatGPT is always very agreeable. Let's break this down psychologically and sociologically. So it's clear why Trump supporters largely remain loyal despite high serious controversies, including sexual misconduct. I think it's probably getting into my previous comments or questions I asked before, trying to maybe just continue that line of lines as why is he as successful as he is? We'll focus on why these controversies don't significantly weaken his public position, particularly with his base. My last topic, my last conversation, went over this again, but maybe get some more clarification here with respect to how the aspect of how people accept him had occurred. And so I'm just looking around. Nobody's joining my chat. Psychological framing of controversies. Trump's base does not evaluate him the same way outsiders do. Instead, they filter controversies through a set of identity-based lenses. Yes. Loyalty over morality. Probably. Many supporters prioritize perceived strength and loyalty to the in-group over personal ethics. Allegations of abuse are seen as attacks by enemies or elites rather than proof of personal failings. Moral wrongdoing is often reframed as irrelevant if he is still fighting for us. And that's something that came up before, the aspect of he was able to convince people that, for one, he's a strong guy. He'll stand up. And with respect to his political activity, he presented himself in a way that I will stand up for you, which people sat there and said, hey, he's going to fight for me. And this aspects of all these flaws, all these accusations, all these things that he went to court for, and some of them found guilty of, that to some extent became irrelevant. And to me, if I get anybody here who views my video, apparently he's not watching right now, but if you view my video and if you are a Trump supporter, I really want to hear why you are a Trump supporter. And the aspect of, is it because he has this persona of being a strong person that will fight for you, being the core reasons for your accolade, you're following him and not seeing any kind of concerns with him? I'd really like to hear you talk about it and maybe explain to me why you feel that way, because that's actually one of the biggest reasons why I'm having these conversations. Is I really want to know why people actually follow him, because I would say that of all the stuff that I've seen, I would say I find it very difficult to understand why people would follow him, regardless of how he presents himself, how he demonstrates his abilities, how he's able to explain how he will take things on. You know, all those things put together. So he goes, yeah, someone says that they'll be tough and they'll be strong, but again, is that what is happening? And is he actually achieving what he is actually stating that he achieved and predicting that he will achieve? Supporters often distrust these institutions. Oh, excuse me, I forgot the first part. Controversies are amplified by media, Democrats, or critics. That's interesting. These two things are very general terms. Democrats, to me, are very specific. And it's interesting, I talked about that before, and again, the aspect of where I talked about the aspect in the United States, and I'm not an American. In the United States, from my perspective, there's a very much a almost brainwashing, cultish mentality with respect to politics in general. You're a Democrat or you're a Republican. And the actions of people in those particular domains are very strong to the aspect of, if you are not, then you must be bad. You must be wrong. And I've seen in some things where people says, you're evil. I've seen a lot, let's say, people on the conservative side in the United States talk about the aspect of Democrats. I've heard them say specifically on TV, on YouTube videos and that I've seen where people sit there and say, yeah, Democrats are evil. I'm going, that's a pretty general statement, and evil is somewhat a very, hardcore accusation that really requires a lot of evidence for one thing and a lot of explanation of why. But again, that gets in the aspects of what I said. It goes, it seems to be very much a core concept in the United States of people in the political realm and what they feel their political point of view are very, very strongly kind of think of the word I want to think of. They present and they talk about their particular area, their particular political point of view to be technically the right way, the correct way, and everything else is wrong. Okay, supporters often distrust these institutions, seeing them as biased or part of the deep state, which again, that's something that, and again, Donald Trump, he talked about that, in his political sales, which is, hey, I'm here to get the garbage out, to make things right again. And I can see how a lot of people actually can be convinced that that is something positive. Question mark is, did that actually occur? Allegations are framed as political weapons, not objective facts. Yeah. And that's the whole aspect of saying goes, for one thing, they looked at them as allegations, which again, a lot of people say, well, that's an allegation. That's not a validation. The thing is, a lot of these accusations that have been made towards Donald Trump, many of them have gone into the court arena, and he has been found guilty of them. Example, sexual abuse allegations often trigger the response. This is just another witch hunt to destroy him. And again, it's the aspect of saying goes, well, yeah, but the whole thing is, what about the actual activity of the trials that had occurred and the conclusions made of that trial? And they say, is it everything that you disagree with can't be right? And that the fact is, if it's something that's accusation-wise that is wrong from your perspective, then it can't be right in the end. Cognitive dissonance reduction. You almost need an explanation what that actually means. When confronted with evidence that conflicts with their loyalty, supporters minimize allegations. It's just locker room talk, which I've heard about that before. Distract with counter accusations. Others are worse. Reframe the narrative. This proves how much they fear him. Okay. Psychologically, this is identity protective cognitive. Okay, so I give an explanation of what that means. People adjust beliefs to protect their in-group alignment. And to me, that gets in the aspects of, when I hear this type of stuff, the first thing I think of is cult. Because when you hear people who are in a cult, people who have been coerced into believing something, this actually is very much similar to the way they defend that cult. These are attacks. These attacks are bad. They hate us. That's why they're attacking us. Just standard psychological kind of perceptions of the activity. Confirmation bias. Supporters selectively accept information that aligns with their worldview. Trump fights elites. Yes, that's a good thing. They say he fights elites. He fights them. Well, that's what you mean by elite. Media attacks Trump. Bad, biased. And again, this whole aspect of, what do they mean by media? If you talk about news, well, news is there to report information, and if you don't believe that information, well, again, that's your choice. Scandal allegations, attack by enemies, not credible. And again, the aspect of saying goes, yeah, is that what's really happening, or did you actually go through the process of evaluating that? And again, I need the Trump people to explain to me, is this true for you? This protects loyalty from erosion, no matter the severity of the allegations. Okay. Excuse me. Trump's own behavior reinforces loyalty. Trump's public response to controversies amplifies resilience among supporters. Denial and deflection, which again we talked about that before. He doesn't accept failure. Refuses to admit wrongdoing. Yes. Projects accusations onto opponents. Yes. Denies credibility of the accusers. Yes. Aggressive offense, turns accusations into political ammunition, uses insults and ridicule against critics, reasserts dominance in public. Yes, that's all very much true in the way he acts. Narrative control, reframes the story, they are attacking me because I'm effective, converts controversy into proof of persecution and resilience. Okay, that aspect of they're attacking me and they're bad. Supporters see him as fighting back rather than guilty. Yeah, okay. More trade-offs thinking among supporters. Supporters often prioritize strength and effectiveness over conventional morality. Trump's benefit to them: anti-establishment, policy alignment, identity validation. Trump's personal failings, sexual misconduct allegations, inappropriate statements, yes. Psychological calculation. Flaws matter less than what he does for us. And he comes in and he goes, what does he do for you? That's the whole thing. He goes, like, there's all the stuff that he does, there's all the stuff that he, has all the stuff that he has done become inconsequential because of what you perceive he is doing for you. But the big thing nowadays in the United States is this aspect of the tariff aspect that Donald Trump has put on the American government. And the aspect that every other country in the world are being tariffed extensively. That gets in the aspects of wondering, does he actually understand economics well? Because people who actually talk about economics, especially economic professionals, talk about the aspects that tariffs, while being productive, can also be very damaging. And being able to know how to use them effectively is what's important. You may say he is using them effectively, but again, you got to understand exactly how he's using them. I know this aspect, and I've seen it too, that people believe that tariffs are a cost to the seller. I say seller because I don't want to get an aspect of country type, but the seller. They say, if you're selling something to this country, we're putting a tariff on you that's going to cost you more to sell to this country. And everybody who knows about tariffs, that that's not the case. The case is, the aspect of tariffs is an impact on the buyer. The buyer is taxed, not the seller. For most parts, most places or most organizations that are selling stuff, they come and goes, you're going to have to pay more to sell that. It says, yeah, I'm not going to do that because that's going to cost me money and I'm not going to be able to make any money. He says, well, you can't sell to us unless you pay this extra money. And you say, well, I'm not going to do that. They're going to leave and they're not going to sell anything. It wouldn't work in a buy-sell, arena. Historical precedent, and populist leaders. This phenomenon is not unique to Trump. Populist leaders often survive major scandals because they just fulfill psychological identities. Okay, that's reiterating. Examples include leaders in Europe, Latin America, and Asia who maintain strong bases despite corrupt sexual and okay, yeah. Pattern. Base loyalty equals emotional instability, not ethical. Why these controversies don't topple Trump's base, which I've went over before, but we'll go over because here it's got a point for him. Identity alignment. Trump equals protector of their values. Allegations are irrelevant. Yes. Media distrust. Critics equals enemies. Scandal attacks, not evidence. Loyalty and group bonds. Defending Trump equals defending groups. Social reinforcement. Narrative control. Trump reframes scandals. Fans see him as resilient. Moral trade-offs. Effectiveness. Persona, ethics. Yeah, this is all basically just a reiteration that he gets by because people accept him for being the right guy. For lack of a better way of saying that. He goes, he doesn't do anything wrong because he's our guy. Our guy can't do anything wrong. He's a strong guy there. He stands up for us, which is basically the big thing is, if you're standing up for me, then how can you be wrong? How can you be bad? And it gets in the aspect, it goes, are the people who are accepting Donald Trump evaluating what Donald Trump is doing? And they're really not. In general, they're really not, because if they were, you would say that there's a question mark of why they would follow him. He's done a lot of things that are very questionable. I don't personally see exactly how anybody would accept him as being a person that would be a person to give your accolades to be a person who you want to follow, to be a person you think is the right person. I don't see that, and I really need the Trump supporters out there to explain to me why. That's the thing that I'm missing. I don't really understand that. Okay, I'm going to leave things there. Nobody joined my conversation again. I'm finding it very difficult to convince people to come and join my conversation. I don't think I see anybody who's actually wanting to join my conversation, but maybe I can try to convince people in one way or another to come and join my conversation. I don't know. I'm going to have to try and figure out different ways to maybe approach people, to maybe explain to them that I have these chats that I'm really looking for them to come and join and have a talk about. Anyway, I'll leave things there, and I'll say goodbye. Again, join my channel, watch my videos. That would be very appreciated and very beneficial for me. Thank you very much.